Deku was already headed where you were. He saw the news report and the villain you were fighting. He knew you could handle it, but he was still nervous. Anything could happen if you were by yourself. He jumped from roof to roof, building to building, street to street. The closer he got to you, the more anxious he felt. When he was closer, he knew if something bad did happen, he would have to see it sooner. However, it also meant that he would see it sooner if things did turn out well and you were fighting by yourself just fine. He prayed the second would be the outcome. As he drew nearer to the place where the battle is, the sound of sirens and the sight of smoke became clearer than if he had watched from the news. The police cars blocking off each street prevented civilians and other heroes getting in the way of you and Tokoyami, the hero you were partnered up for this mission.
Hey, I apologize, but you can't enter. The two heroes on the team seem to have it handled, and we'd like to keep the issue under control, one of the policemen said as he stopped Deku.
Ah, okay. There hasn't been any major injuries on either of them, has there?
He asked the officer anxiously.
No, they both sustained some minor injuries, but we can't be sure from what kind from this distance. If you don't have any other mission, then I advise you help block off the main roads while the others clear the scene.
Okay.
He hesitantly replied, looking back as he headed off to one of the roadblocks, directing people away. You and Tokoyami were mostly in the air, attacking down at the villain who was attempting to destroy the local bank and flower shop. A while later, everything had settled down. You sat in the back of an ambulance being checked out for major injuries. All they found so far were scrapes and places you were definitely going to be bruised within the next couple of days. The paramedic just finished up patching up a few cuts and left to tend to the others, while you saw Deku running up behind him. He had tears in his eyes and looked more worried than ever as he hugged you and lifted you off the edge of the ambulance.
Are you okay?
He questioned frantically, checking you over. You laughed and nodded, reassuring him that you were fine. Hey, I'm fine. I'm really gonna be sore, though, you groaned. He chuckled and pulled you into another hug.
I'm so glad you're safe, listener.
Deku! You don't need to cry. I'm fine. I told you, see? You rambled, standing up with your arms out and jumping up and down. He smiled at your childish behavior.
Yeah, I can see that.
You stopped jumping as he took a hold of your hand. You and Deku walked hand in hand to your house, where you would both lounge around the living room and talk for hours. You rarely got to do that, but tonight you had a chance, and you took it.
Kaminari, they're in the middle of a mission. They aren't going to pick up their phone,
Kirishima sighed, setting his hand on Kaminari's shoulder.
They might,
he protested. Kirishima shook his head and sat back down on the couch, gazing at the news that showed you and Bakugo in the background. You both had been called in for a fight against a villain. You two were the strongest pros in the city, so of course you were the ones who would be assigned for the battle.
Damn it!
Kaminari shouted. He gave a nervous sigh before flopping down onto the couch with Kirishima, staring at the TV.
Don't worry, they're gonna be fine. You can't be sure!
Kirishima rolled his eyes but continued to watch. He turned just in time to see you being thrown into a building, crashing through a window. A moment later, you appeared, unhurt besides a few scrapes. You jumped back out and punched the large monster-like villain. Kirishima jumped when he heard the door slam, only to realize that Kaminari had left before he could see if you were okay. He ran down the street, barefoot, and then sprinted to the place you were fighting. His feet burned, but he could barely feel it. He was only focused on making sure that you hadn't gotten a major injury. He couldn't rely on the news for that. He had to see you. When he arrived, the fight had ended and nervously searched for you. Sparks flew around his hair as his heart raced. His eyes eventually fell on you, sitting on a curb chugging water and pouring it over your head to cool yourself down. You flinched when someone grabbed your hand and stood you up, but you saw that it was Kaminari. You were shocked. Hadn't he been at home? Listener! He picked you up and spun you around as if you were in a cheesy romance movie, in which case was accurate. Wait, I'm soaked! You yelled, trying to push yourself away from him, but he hugged you tighter. It's fine, we can change when we get home, he smiled. You grinned back and buried your head into his shoulder. He held the back of your head and rested his own arms atop of yours. I'm so relieved, he whispered. I'm glad I got to see you again. Are you barefoot? You asked in shock. He rubbed his neck and shrugged a maybe while you laughed. He slung an arm around your waist and started to walk home. You grabbed a towel from one of the paramedics and tossed it over the both of your heads. The rest of the walk home was quiet, but peaceful. "3 hours since you left, and still no text back. Were you staying to help the cleanup? Was there a traffic jam on one of the streets? Had you gotten hurt? Oh God, were you killed? In a coma?" Tamaki's mind wouldn't stop thinking of the worst things that could happen while you were helping the villain attack. Every time you went off for work, he couldn't help but worry. Hell, he was worried when he went out and you stayed home. He sat on the couch in an empty living room of your shared apartment. His legs pulled into his chest as he watched the news, looking for any sign about you, good or bad. During this disastrous event, civilians are encouraged to stay inside their houses for the safety of themselves as well as their families. Pro heroes Earphone Jack and Shockwave are currently the first respondents to the scene and are controlling the villain as limiting the damage to the street. It seems the fight is almost over, as the criminal is now restrained. We'll come back to you in a while with updated information. Tamaki sighed, nausea subsiding now that he knows you're still alive. He got up, went into the kitchen, and began to make tea. His hand shook a bit, but he was just nervous. After about a half an hour, you stepped through the doorway and exhaled a tired breath, seeing as you had just been out for one of your longest local villain fights. Tamaki, I'm back! You called, kicking your shoes off and closing the door behind yourself. Listener? He whispered as he rounded the corner. Hey, are you okay? You look nervous. Yeah, I was kind of worried about you, he admitted. He held a cup of tea for you to take. Thanks, but you didn't have to worry. I'll always come back home to you. You know that, right? You reassured, hugging him and sipping your hot tea. Tamaki nodded into your shoulder as you chuckled. I gotta go get changed and cover a couple of scratches. Most of them are me tripping over myself, you laughed, hoping to lighten the tense atmosphere. He chuckled and led you to the bathroom where he sat on the edge of the bathtub as he got band-aids and washcloths. You watched as he unwrapped each one carefully and put it over each cut. No matter how small it was, he was so careful that you thought he must have been performing surgery. You smiled at him and held his face, saying, We can go watch something for a while before I go to bed. He smiled and nodded, finishing up the last cut and letting you get changed. You changed into sweats and long sleeves before heading out into the living room, where Tamaki sat on the couch and waited. You sat down next to him and laid your head on his lap, turning on a movie you both loved. You began to run your fingers through his hair. I know you'll be here when I get home. And that's why I always make it, you whisper. You felt his hand tighten around yours while he scooted closer. Thank you, listener. Why, hello there. I know I haven't posted in like 2 weeks, and I'm really sorry about that, but I was going through a bunch of stuff, and thankfully I got it all over with. I got all my schoolwork done, and we hit a huge milestone. 2K, really? I'm sorry. I don't know what to say to you guys anymore. You guys absolutely astonish me. I love every single one of you, and I'm so grateful that you like what I put out. And I'm glad that you guys like my voice too. I also wanted to give a huge thank you to Zombie Slayer 797 on Wattpad, because she has been helping me out so much, and I honestly don't know what I would do without her. So please go check out her Wattpad down below in the description and in the pinned comment, and there will probably be a community post. Please go follow her on her Wattpad and read all of these amazing stories. I've read most of them on my channel, but you can always read them for yourself, and I know I haven't covered like the lot of them. So trust me, you want to read these. They're really good, and she's a really great writer. So yeah. I also wanted to congratulate Dragon Slayer 15 for getting 1K on her channel. It's absolutely amazing, and I'm so happy for her. Please go check her out too. She's in my channels tab, as well as a link will be down in the description and in the pinned comment. So please go check both of them out. They're amazing, and I love them both. And I love all of you guys too. I promise I'll be working on the next part of the Deku X Villain Listener. It'll be out. And then I think I'll do one AU ending, and if you guys want more, I'll make more, but not really in the mood to make 5 other endings. So, or if you guys have endings that you want, just tell me, so then I can look into it. I think that's all I wanted to say. Besides, thank you for 2K, and to check both of them out. With all that said and done, don't forget I'm the Lady Otaku, and have a wonderful day, night, evening, whenever you're watching this. Goodbye. I love you guys.